Namaste and welcome to the UPSC News Analysis for the 26th of May, 2025. In this deep dive, we're going to unpack some crucial current affairs. We'll try to demystify, every concept in the text and connect these events to the issues that really matter for your UPSC mains preparation. Think of it as your shortcut to staying well-informed and exam ready. Let's get started.
Yes, absolutely. And today we've got quite a diverse set of topics lined up. We'll kick off with India's advancements in weather forecasting, then look at Tamil Nadu's new space industrial policy. After that, we'll examine the oil spill response off the Kerala coast, which is quite serious, followed by the synchronized elephant census happening in South India. Interesting stuff there. Then we shift gears a bit, talk about the changing mortality patterns in India, the rise of NCDs. We'll also cover the revised length of India's coastline, a bigger number than you might think, and touch upon a concerning incident of statue vandalism in Punjab, plus the difficult decision made by Sister Anupama, the nun involved in the Bishop Franco protest, and finally, wrap up with an important health initiative, the Mother and Child Protection Card. Each one holds, well, significant relevance for your UPSC prep.
Okay, great. Let's dive right into the first one. The Pahar Forecasting System, or BFS. So the IND India Meteorological Department launched this on May 25th at the World Meteorological Congress. For listeners maybe new to this, can we break down what weather forecasting actually is and what's special about BFS?
Sure. So weather forecasting, at its core, it's really about using science and tech to predict what the atmosphere is going to do, right? Things like temperature, rain, wind, for a specific place and time. Now, the Hard Forecasting System, BFS, this is India's brand new indigenously developed high-resolution system. What's really remarkable is its resolution, 6 kilometers.
6 kilometers.
Okay. Yeah, and that means it can generate forecasts with much, much finer detail for smaller areas compared to what we had. Honestly, with this 6-kilometer resolution, it's currently the highest resolution operational system globally. Puts India right at the forefront.
Wow, globally, that's significant.
It is. And this leap isn't just academic. It really empowers localized decisions. Think disaster response, agriculture planning. You can potentially save lives and livelihoods in a way older systems just couldn't manage.
That 6-kilometer resolution does sound like a game changer. So how does BFS actually do this? It's not just, looking at clouds, right?
Definitely not. BFS uses something called numerical weather prediction models, NWP. These are essentially very complex mathematical models of the atmosphere and oceans. They ingest huge amounts of real-time weather data, temperature, pressure, wind speed. This comes from satellites, ground radars, weather balloons, surface stations, a whole network.
Right.
Then powerful supercomputers crunch this data using these intricate models to simulate how weather evolves. The accuracy really hinges on two things: the supercomputer's power and the quality, the timeliness of that initial data feed.
And you mentioned 6-kilometer resolution is a big deal. Why is that detail so crucial? And what improvements does it bring over the older system, GFS, you said?
Exactly. It replaces the older global forecasting system, GFS, which ran at a much coarser resolution. Think of it like zooming in on a map. Before, maybe you saw the weather for a whole state. Now you can see variations within, say, a large district or city.
Okay, I see.
This finer 6-kilometer scale allows BFS to capture much more regional variation. What that means practically is more accurate predictions for rainfall, how much, and exactly where. More precise temperature forecasts, and, really crucially, much better tracking and forecasting of cyclones and other extreme weather events. That level of precision is vital for issuing timely warnings and getting preparedness measures in place.
So this isn't just a standalone tech upgrade then. How does BFS fit into the bigger picture of what the government's doing for weather and disaster management?
No, you're absolutely right. It's part of a much larger coordinated national effort. The Ministry of Earth Sciences is central, funding and overseeing these national programs. IMD itself has been undergoing massive modernization, deploying Doppler radars everywhere, expanding the automatic weather station network, plus utilizing advanced satellites like INSAT and Megatropics. Then you have specific missions, like the National Monsoon Mission, critical for agriculture, and tools for the public, like the Malsum and Megdoot apps, getting info directly to citizens, especially farmers. Even earlier steps, like adopting the model, helped improve short-range forecasts. And all this operates under the Disaster Management Act of 2005, which really emphasizes forecasting and early warning.
Okay, this sounds incredibly promising. But thinking about the UPSC mains syllabus, what are the key hurdles we still face in making this system truly effective on the ground?
That's a very relevant question for mains. Several challenges remain. First, even with 6-kilometer resolution, accuracy still depends heavily on that high-quality real-time data. We need a consistent, reliable flow.
Data dependency, got it.
Second, the observation infrastructure radars, AWS, it's still unevenly spread. Rural and remote areas often lack good coverage. Third, there's often a gap at the local level, district, block level, in interpreting and disseminating this complex forecast data effectively to the communities.
The last mile challenge.
Exactly. And finally, we need to keep building a skilled workforce capable of using BFS outputs for various applications.
So, beyond the challenges, what kind of real-world impact can BFS have on key sectors like agriculture, disaster management, even urban planning?
The potential impact is huge. For agriculture, timely warnings about rain, frost risk, etc. can significantly boost productivity, minimize losses. For disaster management, accurate early warnings for cyclones, floods, heat waves, it's fundamental for saving lives, reducing damage.
Absolutely.
For urban planning, BFS data is invaluable for managing city heat waves, predicting urban floods, making infrastructure more climate resilient. And long-term, better climate forecasting provides a stronger basis for adaptation strategies in vulnerable regions.
And thinking about governance and ethics, with so much public data being generated and shared, are there specific points we need to be mindful of?
Definitely. Transparency is key. The data from BFS should be easily accessible to the public, in a user-friendly format.
Yeah.
And crucially, ensuring this information reaches the most vulnerable, that last-mile delivery we mentioned. This raises ethical questions about equity, making sure life-saving info reaches everyone, regardless of status or location.
Looking ahead then, what are the most critical steps needed to maximize the benefits BFS offers India?
Several things. We need better integration of BFS outputs into local disaster plans, maybe down to the panchayat level. Capacity building is vital, training local authorities, farmers, communities to understand and use the forecasts.
Makes sense.
Expanding the ground observation network, more AWS, more radars, especially in underserved areas. Engaging the private sector too, agri-tech, insurance to leverage BFS data for innovative solutions.
Partnerships, right?
Exactly. Strong policy support is needed to integrate BFS data into climate-resilient infrastructure planning, smart cities development, and finally, boosting community awareness using local languages, radio, mobile alerts to reach everyone effectively.
It certainly seems the Bharat forecasting system has immense potential, a real game changer for India's development and disaster preparedness. Now, let's shift gears to another major policy. Tamil Nadu's Space Industrial and Propulsion Park Policy 2025. Unveiled in May, planning hubs in Thoothukudi and Tirunelveli. Why is a state-level space policy like this important now?
Well, space technology is just indispensable today, isn't it? Telecom, defense, climate monitoring, disaster management, GPS, weather, imaging. It touches everything. A dedicated space industrial policy, especially from a state, aims to build the right infrastructure and attract investment. It's about fostering indigenous manufacturing of space components, boosting R&D, maybe even supporting launch capabilities down the line. Basically, creating a thriving ecosystem for the space industry within Tamil Nadu.
So positioning the state as a key player?
Precisely. It signals Tamil Nadu's ambition to be a foundational part of India's space story, moving beyond just being a consumer of space services.
We've been hearing a lot about the private sector getting more involved in space in India recently. How does this Tamil Nadu policy fit into that national picture?
Yes, the central government has been actively encouraging private participation since the reforms around 2020. You have N-Space, the Promotion and Authorization Center, and NSIL, the commercial arm of ISRO. ISRO itself is collaborating more with private firms. The goal is more competition, innovation, bringing in private capital and expertise.
Right, opening up the sector.
Exactly. So Tamil Nadu's policy is a direct, proactive move to capitalize on this national push. It wants to become a major hub for this growing private space industry.
So what exactly is Tamil Nadu offering to attract these companies, startups, and R&D institutions? What's in the policy?
It's quite comprehensive. They're offering various subsidies on land, power, capital investment, even R&D support, streamlined single-window clearances or promised, with a 10-year policy stability guarantee, which is attractive for long-term investment. And importantly, they plan to develop state-of-the-art propulsion testing infrastructure in these hubs. That kind of testing facility is critical for rocket startups and has often been a bottleneck for private players.
Addressing a specific need.
Yes. The policy even mentions names like Agnikol and Skyroot, plus other startups and research institutions, showing clear intent to involve key players.
And again, connecting this to the national level,
Yeah.
how does this state policy align with what the central government is trying to achieve in space?
The alignment is very strong, very clear. The ISRO reforms, in space, setting the stage for private players. That's the foundation. Then you have things like the PLI scheme for electronics manufacturing, which supports making satellite components indigenously.
Right, the incentives.
The National Geospatial Policy 2022 liberalized access to satellite data, which is crucial. The draft Indian Space Policy 2023 further pushes for private participation across the board. And of course, it fits perfectly with Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, building self-reliance in strategic sectors like space.
This sounds like a really positive development for Tamil Nadu and India's space sector. But what are the potential challenges or, pitfalls to watch out for?
Good question. Several challenges need careful handling. One is the availability of affordable test and launch facilities. The policy addresses propulsion testing, but launch access still largely depends on ISRO.
Dependence on ISRO.
Right. Then there's the high capital needed for space tech, a big barrier, especially for startups. There's still some reliance on ISRO for technical support and validation too. And regulatory clarity is absolutely vital. Things like data ownership, liability if something goes wrong, spectrum allocation for communication satellites. These need to be ironed out.
And thinking bigger picture, what impacts could this policy have beyond just the space sector on the economy, technology, maybe even regional development?
The potential impacts are quite broad. Economically, it could really boost high-tech manufacturing in Tamil Nadu, create a startup ecosystem. Technologically, it fosters homegrown capabilities in critical areas like propulsion, satellite design.
Building capacity.
Strategically, it helps reduce India's dependence on foreign players for launches and data. And regionally, it could spur industrial growth and create high-skilled jobs, particularly in southern TN, where the hubs are planned.
Are there any specific ethical or governance concerns that pop up with more privatization in a sector like space?
Yes, definitely. There's always a potential risk of monopolies forming or strategic national assets becoming overly privatized without enough safeguards.
Right. Oversight is needed.
Absolutely. And ensuring long-term space sustainability. Addressing the growing problem of space debris is crucial. We need robust regulations to manage these risks responsibly.
So looking ahead, what's the best way forward to ensure this Tamil Nadu space policy succeeds and delivers on its promise?
Close synergy between the state and national level is essential. Tamil Nadu needs to work tightly with InSpace, align with national goals, leverage central support. Investing heavily in skill development is crucial. Specialized aerospace training programs in engineering colleges. Building that talent pipeline.
Human capital.
Exactly. Finalizing and implementing a comprehensive Indian Space Act is paramount for clear regulations. Encouraging public-private R&D collaborations through ISRO, DRDO, DST funding will drive innovation. And finally, embedding sustainability from the start, mandatory environmental clearances, a clear space debris policy. We need to be responsible stewards of space.
It certainly seems like Tamil Nadu's policy is a bold step, well aligned with national space ambitions. Okay, let's shift now to a more concerning topic, the oil spill response off the Kerala coast. This happened May 24th, about 14.6 nautical miles offshore, from a sunken vessel. What exactly occurred, and why are oil spills such a major concern?
Yes, sadly, a sunken vessel started leaking oil into a very sensitive marine environment off Kerala. An oil spill, basically, an accidental release of petroleum hydrocarbons, is dangerous on multiple fronts. Ecologically, it can devastate marine ecosystems, coral reefs, coastal biodiversity. It's just toxic stuff. Economically, it hits fishing communities hard, impacting their livelihoods and damages tourism, which is vital for Kerala. And it can lead to long-term contamination of beaches, even groundwater. It's a serious environmental hazard.
And we saw a cleanup operation launched pretty quickly. Who are the main players involved in responding to something like this in India?
In this case, the Indian Coast Guard, ICG, took the lead in coordinating the response. That's their mandate. They worked closely with the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority, KSDMA, local fishermen cooperatives who have invaluable local knowledge, and marine experts. Getting all these stakeholders involved quickly and coordinating effectively is absolutely key for a good response.
What kind of methods or tools do they actually use to try and control the spill and clean it up?
There's a standard toolkit, essentially. They use floating barriers called booms to try and contain the oil slick on the surface.
Like a fence on the water?
Pretty much. Then specialized boats called skimmers physically remove the oil from the water. Sometimes they use bioremediation, introducing microbes that eat the oil. And chemical dispersants can be used to break the oil into smaller droplets, hoping nature takes care of it faster. Though dispersants themselves can be controversial due to their own potential impacts.
Given this happened off Kerala, known for its rich marine life and fishing communities, why is a rapid response especially critical there?
Precisely because Kerala's coast is so rich ecologically, and so many communities depend directly on fishing. A spill there can cause widespread coral bleaching, kill birds and marine animals, lead to long-term fish stock depletion.
Devastating.
Absolutely. The economic blow to fishing and tourism can be severe and long-lasting, so a rapid, comprehensive, and environmentally sensitive cleanup is just essential to minimize the damage and help the area recover.
Does India have a specific national plan or laws to handle oil spills?
Yes, we do. There's the National Oil Spill Disaster Contingency Plan, NOSDCP, managed by the Indian Coast Guard. It provides a tiered response framework. The Directorate General of Shipping also plays a role, enforcing regulations like the MARPOL Convention to prevent pollution.
Okay, so there is a structure.
There is. Plus, the Environmental Protection Act 1986 provides legal teeth to penalize polluters. The Coast Guard Act and Merchant Shipping Act also have relevant provisions. And broader initiatives like Sagarmala and the Blue Economy Policy emphasize sustainable, resilient coasts, which indirectly supports preparedness.
What are some common challenges or issues that often come up when responding to oil spills in India?
Several recurring challenges exist. Sometimes there are delays in detecting the spill, especially if it's far offshore. Local capacity can be an issue. States might lack specialized equipment or enough trained personnel for a large spill.
Resource constraints.
Yes. Ensuring fair and timely compensation for affected communities can also be complex and slow. And sometimes coordination between different agencies, central, state, vessel operators could be smoother. Communication is key.
And what about the long-term impacts? What can an oil spill do to the environment, economy, health, and society in the affected area?
The long-term impacts can be really substantial. Environmentally, you can see lasting damage to corals, persistent contamination sediments in the food chain, continued mortality for wildlife. Economically, fishing yields might drop for years. Tourism can suffer long-term losses.
Health impacts, too.
Definitely. Local populations might face skin issues, respiratory problems from exposure to oil or cleanup chemicals. Socially, communities can face displacement, disruption of their way of life, severe hits to their livelihoods. It's deeply disruptive.
Thinking about governance and ethics here, what are the key considerations when dealing with oil spills?
Accountability is paramount. Investigating potential negligence by shipping companies or others responsible. Transparency in assessing damage and providing fair, timely compensation to affected communities is vital for trust and justice.
Right.
And the polluter pays principle needs rigorous enforcement. Those responsible must bear the full cost of cleanup and remediation.
Looking ahead, what specific steps can be taken to improve India's preparedness and response capabilities for future oil spills?
We need stronger surveillance, more use of satellites, drones for early detection and tracking, establishing well-equipped local response units in key coastal areas with trained personnel for rapid initial action.
Building local capacity.
Exactly. Stricter penalties and really enforcing the polluter pays principle act as deterrents. A more robust, real-time alert and coordination mechanism involving Coast Guard, state maritime boards, pollution control boards is needed. Promoting eco-friendly cleanup methods like bioremediation is important. And actively involving local communities' preparedness planning and mock drills significantly enhances readiness.
It's clear that robust preparedness and response are absolutely vital for protecting our coasts and the people who depend on them. Let's move now to wildlife conservation, the synchronized elephant census in South India. This started in May with Kerala, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu collaborating across the Western Ghats. Why is doing a synchronized census so important for elephants?
Well, elephants are a keystone species, meaning they play a critical role in maintaining the health of their forest ecosystems. They're also highly protected under Schedule V of the Wildlife Protection Act. Now, elephants, especially in the Western Ghats, they roam across large areas, often crossing state borders, particularly in that tri-junction area of TN, Kerala, Karnataka.
Right. They don't respect state lines.
Exactly. So if each state did its own census at different times, you could end up double counting elephants that moved across or missing others entirely. That leads to unreliable numbers. A synchronized census uses the same methods across all states simultaneously over a set period. This avoids double counting and gives a much more accurate picture of the entire population in that connected landscape.
What were the main goals of this particular census, and were there any new methods used this time?
The main aims were to get better, more reliable data on the elephant population size in the Western Ghats. Also, to understand where human-elephant conflict is happening most, and ultimately to inform and improve conservation plans.
Okay.
And yes, they did incorporate some new methods to boost transparency and consistency. Things like using mobile apps for real-time data recording, GPS devices for accurate locations of sightings and signs like dung or tracks, and involving trained volunteer trackers alongside Forest Department staff, which also helps.
How does the census and elephant conservation in general connect with existing government initiatives and programs?
There are strong links. Project Elephant, launched back in '92, is the main central scheme for protecting elephants, their habitats, and mitigating conflict. India has identified around 101 elephant corridors, vital pathways for their movement, and efforts are ongoing to secure these.
Corridors are key.
Absolutely. Then there's the MIKE program, monitoring illegal killing of elephants, an international initiative under CITES, active in several Indian states. The Wildlife Protection Act provides the legal framework. CAMP funds are often used for habitat work and conflict mitigation, and eco-sensitive zones around protected areas aim to minimize disturbances in wildlife habitats, including for elephants.
Despite all these efforts, we still hear about challenges in elephant conservation. What are the major hurdles?
Habitat fragmentation is a huge one, driven by roads, railways, agriculture, plantations cutting through forests, rising human-elephant conflict, HEC, crop damage, tragic human deaths, creates understandable local antagonism towards conservation.
Very difficult issue.
Indeed. Poaching for ivory, though reduced, sadly still persists in some areas, and often the funding and effective implementation of conflict mitigation measures at the ground level can be insufficient.
What impact do elephants have on biodiversity and ecology? And what are the societal implications, especially with this conflict?
Ecologically, they're vital seed dispersers for many plants, crucial for forest diversity. Their feeding habits shape forest structure, creating habitats for other species. They're indicators of forest health.
So, very important ecologically.
Very. But socially, the overlap with human areas leads to conflict. Economic losses for farmers, threats to human lives. This understandably causes fear and resentment, straining relationships between communities and forest departments.
And ethically, or from a governance perspective, what are the key considerations in elephant conservation?
Ethically, it's about balancing development needs with the rights and conservation needs of wildlife like elephants. It's a complex balancing act. Governance-wise, it's crucial that conservation is inclusive, involving and benefiting local, tribal, and forest-dwelling communities, respecting their rights and knowledge.
Looking forward, what steps are most needed to strengthen elephant conservation in India?
Several things. We need to expedite the legal notification and securing of those identified elephant corridors, using data from censuses like this one. Expanding the use of technology drones for monitoring, AI for data analysis. Camera traps can really boost management.
Tech solutions.
Implementing faster, more efficient compensation mechanisms for conflict-affected communities is vital to reduce hostility. Building more eco-bridges and underpasses across roads and railways in crucial corridors facilitates safer movement.
Infrastructure solutions.
Yes, strengthening interstate cooperation and information sharing between states like TN, Kerala, Karnataka is essential for landscape-level conservation. And sustained education and awareness programs targeting forest edge communities to promote coexistence are key for long-term success.
It's clear that conserving these magnificent animals requires sustained, collaborative efforts from everyone involved. Let's shift now to human health in India. The changing mortality patterns, specifically the rise of non-communicable diseases, NCDs. Data shows things like cardiovascular diseases, diabetes are now leading causes of death. Can you explain NCDs and why tracking these patterns matters?
Sure. Non-communicable diseases, NCDs, are chronic illnesses not caused by infections, so they don't spread person to person. Think heart attacks, stroke, cancers, chronic respiratory diseases like asthma and diabetes. Those are the big ones.
Okay, the chronic conditions.
Exactly. A mortality pattern just refers to the main causes of death in a population, how that's distributed. Understanding these changing patterns is vital. It tells us the biggest health challenges a country faces. This helps formulate effective health policies, plan healthcare infrastructure, target preventive measures and campaigns properly. It guides resource allocation.
And we heard the COVID-19 pandemic also impacted these patterns. How did that happen?
Well, COVID obviously caused a direct spike in infectious disease deaths, but it also had indirect, longer-term effects likely contributing to NCD vulnerability and deaths. Think disruptions to routine health care for chronic conditions, more sedentary lifestyles during lockdowns, unhealthy eating habits,
Right, lifestyle changes.
and possibly long COVID conditions exacerbating existing NCDs or increasing future risk. The full picture is still emerging, but there's likely an impact.
Which agencies and data sources are key for monitoring these changing mortality patterns in India?
The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is the main agency. They work closely with the Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, and international bodies like WHO. Key data comes from the National Health Profile, various disease registries, and national health surveys. It's important to remember, India faces a dual disease burden, still tackling infectious diseases while NCDs are rapidly rising. This puts a huge strain on the healthcare system, especially post-COVID.
What are some major government initiatives specifically targeting this growing NCD burden?
There are several key programs. The National Program for Prevention and Control of Cancer, Diabetes, Cardiovascular Diseases and Stroke, and PCDCS, focuses on early detection and management. Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Centers are crucial for screening NCDs at the primary level.
Screening is important.
Very. Then you have awareness campaigns like Fit India, Eat Right India, promoting Yoga Day, all aiming at healthier lifestyles. The National Multi-Sectoral Action Plan, NMAP, recognizes NCDs need action beyond just the health sector. PMJAY provides financial cover for treating serious NCDs for vulnerable groups. And the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission aims for integrated health records, which can help manage chronic conditions better.
Despite these programs, what are the big challenges still hindering effective NCD prevention and control in India?
Several persist. Preventive care, especially in rural areas, is often inadequate. Rapid, often unhealthy lifestyle changes due to urbanization and sedentary habits are widespread.
Modern life issues.
Yes. High out-of-pocket costs for chronic disease care remain a huge burden for many families. The doctor-patient ratio is low, and there's often a lack of support for sustained lifestyle changes. Plus, getting comprehensive data from the private healthcare sector is still a challenge, limiting the national picture.
What are the broader impacts of these rising NCD rates on society and the economy?
They're substantial, health-wise. Premature deaths, reduced quality of life for millions, economically. Huge losses in productivity due to illness, escalating healthcare costs for individuals and the government.
A major economic drain.
Absolutely.
Right.
Socially, heavy emotional and financial burdens on families, especially the poor and elderly, governance-wise. Tackling NCDs needs strong coordination across sectors, urban planning, food regulation, education, not just health.
Are there specific ethical concerns related to the rise of NCDs?
Yes, definitely. Health inequity is a major one. Big disparities in access to diagnosis and treatment between urban and rural areas, rich and poor.
Access gaps.
And the aggressive marketing of unhealthy products, tobacco, junk food, alcohol, raises serious ethical questions about corporate responsibility versus public health.
Looking ahead, what are the most urgent steps needed to tackle this growing NCD burden effectively?
A multi-pronged approach is crucial. Universal NCD screening at the primary level is key for early detection. Promoting healthy lifestyles through incentives and regulations where needed. Integrating health education about NCDs into school curricula early on.
Starting young.
Expanding mobile health units and telemedicine to reach remote areas. Strengthening disease registries and digital reporting for better data to guide policy. Encouraging workplace wellness programs. And designing cities that promote walking and provide green spaces, a whole-of-society approach.
It's very clear tackling NCDs needs a concerted effort on multiple fronts. Now, let's revisit the coastline topic, but focus on the science. India's coastline is now officially 11,098.8 kilometers, up from 7,516.6 kilometers. You mentioned the coastline paradox explains this. Can you elaborate?
Yes, the coastline paradox. It's a fascinating concept. Basically, it says the length you measure for a coastline isn't fixed. It depends entirely on the scale of measurement you use. Think of it like using a ruler. If you use a long ruler, you skip over small inlets and curves. If you use a tiny ruler, you capture all those little wiggles, and the total length measured becomes much longer.
So the finer the measurement tool, the longer the coastline appears.
Exactly. Natural coastlines are irregular. They have this fractal-like quality, meaning they show similar patterns of jaggedness at different zoom levels. This idea was noted by Louis Fry Richardson and really developed by Benoit Mandelbrot, the father of fractal geometry. So the recent revision by NCSCM used high-resolution digital mapping at a 1.5 scale. This captured far more detailed small bays, estuaries, island perimeters than older, coarser methods, hence the significantly longer measurement.
Okay, that makes sense scientifically. How does this paradox and the resulting longer measurement actually impact government policies and initiatives in practice?
It has real-world consequences. NCSCM, which did the mapping, advises the government on coastal management. Their more accurate data is crucial. The Coastal Regulation Zone, CRZ rules, which control development near the coast, might need updating based on this more precise coastline definition.
Regulations might need to change.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Big projects like the Sustainable Coastal Management Project, the Blue Economy Policy, the Sagarmatala Port Development Plan, they all rely on accurate coastal data for effective planning. Even marine spatial planning, zoning coastal areas for different uses, benefits hugely from having this precise baseline.
What are the challenges and impacts arising from this updated length, especially for disaster management, maritime security, or environmental protection?
Well, for disaster management, more accurate mapping helps better identify vulnerable zones for cyclones, tsunamis, flooding, allowing more targeted action. For maritime security, it affects the precise demarcation of our exclusive economic zone, EEZ, and maritime boundaries. Precision matters there.
Jurisdictional implications.
Right. For fisheries and the coastal economy, it can influence resource management policies, fishing zone allocations. Environmentally, it helps better identify and protect sensitive ecosystems like mangroves or turtle nesting sites that fall within this more detailed coastline. And it's crucial for assessing climate change impacts like sea level rise and erosion more accurately, linking to SDG 13 on climate action.
Are there ethical or governance angles to consider with this revised coastline measurement?
Yes. Transparency is key, making these detailed maps and data publicly accessible, ensuring the data is used for public good, preventing misuse for, say, speculative real estate grabbing in newly defined coastal areas. And balancing development pressures with environmental justice in these regions remains a critical governance challenge.
So what are the next steps to incorporate this new understanding into policy and planning effectively?
Revising the CRZ maps and notifications based on the updated data is a priority. Continuing to use advanced mapping tech like LiDAR and drones for ongoing monitoring of coastal changes.
Keeping the data current.
Exactly. Strengthening nature-based shoreline protection, mangrove restoration, bioshields. Engaging coastal communities, training them in GIS mapping, understanding hazards, integrating this info into education curricula and urban-rural planning for coastal regions, and ensuring strong collaboration and data sharing between agencies like NCSCM, ISRO, the Hydrographic Office, IMD for integrated coastal management.
It's truly fascinating how a scientific paradox has such concrete implications for managing India's coasts. Now let's turn to a more somber topic, the vandalism of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's statue and a Constitution replica in Punjab on May 25th. Can you provide some context?
Yes, this was a very unfortunate incident. A statue of Dr. Ambedkar, the architect of our Constitution, and a pivotal social reformer, along with a replica of the Constitution itself, was vandalized. The perpetrator was arrested, but it led to protests, especially as it happened in a Dalit majority area. Statue vandalism in India, sadly, often becomes a flashpoint for social conflict, particularly reflecting underlying caste tensions. Dr. Ambedkar is an immensely revered figure, especially among Dalit communities, and attacks on his statues are seen as attacks on their identity and constitutional rights.
What legal or government measures exist to address such acts and protect the rights of marginalized communities?
Several key pieces of legislation apply. The Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989 is specifically designed to prevent atrocities against these communities and provides for stringent punishment. The Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955 also deals with offenses arising out of untouchability and discrimination. Sections of the Indian Penal Code, like 295 injuring or defiling place of worship with intent to insult religion, and 295A, deliberate acts intended to outrage religious feelings, can also be invoked, depending on the specifics.
So there are laws in place.
Yes. Additionally, the government supports institutions like the Dr. Ambedkar Foundation and promotes awareness through events like Ambedkar Jayanti to uphold his legacy and constitutional values.
Thinking from a Maine's perspective again, what are the broader challenges highlighted by incidents like this?
It points to several challenges. The persistence, perhaps even increase, of caste-based symbolic violence is deeply concerning. Often there are issues with delayed police action or low conviction rates under the Atrocities Act, which can erode faith in the justice system.
Implementation gaps.
Exactly. Political polarization can sometimes exacerbate these tensions, and it raises complex questions about the balance between freedom of expression and preventing hate speech that incites violence or division.
What are the impacts of such incidents on society, polity, and governance?
Socially, it deepens caste divisions and damages the social fabric. Politically, it fuels debates around identity politics, freedom of speech versus hate speech. For governance, it's a law and order challenge, testing the state's ability to protect minorities and uphold constitutional values. Judicially, it involves balancing fundamental rights and ensuring justice for victims of discrimination.
Are there specific ethical concerns raised by acts like statue vandalism?
Absolutely. There's the fundamental disrespect shown to historical figures who hold immense significance for large sections of society. There's the ethical concern about the misuse of symbols for political mobilization or spreading hatred, and it reflects a failure in some ways to uphold the constitutional value of fraternity, mutual respect, and solidarity among citizens.
What's the way forward to address not just the incidents, but the underlying issues?
Swift legal action is crucial fast-tracking cases under the Atrocities Act to ensure accountability. Promoting community dialogue forums to bridge divides and foster understanding between different groups.
Dialogue is key.
Educational reform is needed to ensure the true teachings of reformers like Ambedkar, focusing on equality and social justice, are widely understood. Monitoring social media for hate speech and taking action against its propagation. Strengthening local policing through sensitization training on caste issues, and empowering institutions dedicated to Ambedkar's legacy to play a more active role in promoting constitutional values.
Addressing these underlying social tensions and ensuring respect for constitutional values is clearly essential. Let's move to another sensitive issue. Sister Anupama announcing she's leaving her religious order after her role in the protest against Bishop Franco Mulako. Can you remind us of the context?
Yes, this is significant. Sister Anupama was one of the most visible faces among the group of nuns who protested publicly in 2018, demanding action against Bishop Franco Mulako over allegations of rape against another nun. Her recent announcement cited harassment and alienation within her congregation following her protest actions as the reason for leaving. The Franco case itself involves serious allegations against a high-ranking bishop, leading to widespread protests and debates about accountability within the church. Convents and religious orders have their own structures, vows of obedience, and hierarchies, which makes dissent particularly challenging.
Why is her exit considered important? What questions does it raise?
Her exit is important because it starkly highlights the challenges faced by whistleblowers, especially women, within powerful religious institutions. It raises critical questions about the support systems, or lack thereof, for those who speak out against alleged abuse or misconduct within such closed systems. It connects to the broader global conversation, often termed the #ChurchMeToo movement, about women's rights, power dynamics, and accountability within religious orders. Her decision, driven by conscience after facing repercussions for protesting, is quite significant in post-protest India.
Are there government interventions or legal frameworks relevant to such situations, even within religious contexts?
It's complex. The Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act, 2013 POSH Act, is the primary law, but its application within religious orders can be ambiguous. Relevant IPC sections like 376, rape, and 509, insulting modesty of a woman, apply universally. The National Commission for Women, NCW, did offer support during the 2018 protests. The Kerala Women's Commission and State Human Rights Commission also raised concerns. But enforcing secular laws within autonomous religious bodies presents unique challenges.
What are the key issues and challenges this situation brings to light, especially for UPSC aspirants to consider?
Several key issues. Lack of robust accountability mechanisms within many religious institutions. The significant power asymmetry between superiors and subordinates, often reinforced by vows of obedience.
Power dynamic.
The difficulty in silencing dissent, and the potential isolation faced by those who challenge the status quo. Societal stigma, particularly against women who speak out against powerful figures, especially religious ones. And the often slow pace of the formal justice system. Bishop Franco was acquitted in 2022, though an appeal is pending. This can be demoralizing for those seeking justice.
How does this intersect with women's rights, governance, and ethics?
It's a major issue for women's rights, contributing to the global debate on abuse and cover-ups within religious institutions. Governance-wise, it raises questions about how to regulate religious institutions to ensure compliance with fundamental rights, including women's safety and dignity, while respecting religious freedom.
A tricky balance.
Very much so. Ethically, it highlights the conflict between individual conscience and institutional loyalty or obedience. It also sheds light on the mental health impact on whistleblowers, who often face immense pressure and isolation.
From an ethical or governance angle, what stands out?
The apparent weakness of whistleblower protection mechanisms, specifically within religious contexts, is a major governance gap. And the ethical dilemma faced by individuals caught between seeking justice and remaining loyal to their order or institution is profound.
What could be the way forward to address these challenges?
Legislative clarity on the applicability of laws like the POH Act within religious orders could help. Extending whistleblower protection laws more explicitly to cover religious institutions. Perhaps exploring independent oversight bodies or ombudspersons for religious institutions, though this is constitutionally sensitive.
Oversight mechanisms.
Empowering internal complaints committees within these orders, possibly with external monitoring or members, could be a step. Crucially, building stronger support systems, mental health support, legal aid for those who speak out, and broader societal change is needed to challenge stigma and create narratives that celebrate the courage of whistleblowers.
It certainly highlights the immense challenges individuals face when seeking justice within powerful, often closed institutions. Let's move to our final topic. Awareness around the Mother and Child Protection, MCP card. What is this card and why is it important?
The MCP card is a really important health tool. It's a joint initiative of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Its main purpose is to track essential health services for a woman right from pregnancy through to when her child reaches the age of 3. It records things like antenatal checkups, immunizations, growth monitoring, nutritional supplements received. It also serves as an educational tool for mothers, providing key health messages.
Why is having such a card considered so vital?
It's crucial for ensuring a continuum of care-linking services across pregnancy, childbirth, and early childhood. This is key to reducing maternal and child mortality. It helps health workers and parents track whether a child is receiving timely immunizations and growing adequately. It aids early detection of developmental delays or malnutrition. It promotes utilization of essential services like antenatal care and institutional delivery. Basically, it's a comprehensive health passport for mother and child during a critical period.
So a vital record.
Absolutely. And recently, on May 25th, pediatricians and health activists at a national seminar highlighted the need for much greater awareness and utilization of this card, especially in rural India, noting its potential isn't fully tapped.
How does the MCP card connect with other government health and nutrition programs?
It's deeply integrated. The Integrated Child Development Services ICDS scheme, Anganwadi workers, are key users and distributors of the card. It aligns with the goals of the Reproductive, Maternal, Newborn, Child, and Adolescent Health RMNCH+A strategy. It often helps link beneficiaries to incentives under schemes like Janani Suraksha Yojana, JSY, and Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, PMMVY.
Connecting different schemes.
Yes. The data captured can feed into monitoring progress under Poshan Abhiyan, the National Nutrition Mission. And there are pilot projects exploring electronic versions, EMCP, linking it to the broader digital health ecosystem.
What are the main challenges preventing the MCP card from being used more effectively?
Several challenges exist. Low awareness among mothers, particularly those with lower literacy levels, about the card's purpose and importance. Inconsistent or incomplete data entry by frontline health workers can be an issue.
Data quality issues.
Cards getting lost or damaged. Language barriers, if the card isn't available or explained in the local language. And often, a lack of seamless digital integration with larger health databases, although efforts are underway.
What are the impacts if the card isn't used properly?
It can lead to missed immunizations, delayed detection of malnutrition or growth faltering in children, potential delays in accessing early childhood care and development services. It can reduce women's agency in tracking their own and their child's health. And from a governance perspective, it weakens the tracking of national health targets related to maternal and child health.
Are there any ethical or governance concerns related to the MCP card?
One potential concern is if lack of a card leads to denial of services, which shouldn't happen but sometimes might implicitly. There is a need for inclusive communication strategies to ensure all mothers, regardless of literacy or background, understand and benefit from the card. It's about equity.
What's the way forward to improve awareness and utilization of the MCP card?
More intensive community awareness drives, using local influencers and multimedia. Simplifying the card format, perhaps using more pictorial guidance, and ensuring availability in multiple local languages.
Making it user-friendly.
Accelerating digitization, developing a user-friendly MMCP app linked to the Ayushman Bharat digital mission. Continuous training for frontline workers, ASHAs, ANMs, Anganwadi workers, not just on filling the card, but on having meaningful conversations with mothers using it, potentially linking card possession or key entries to accessing benefits under PDS or DBT schemes carefully to incentivize usage, and regular monitoring and audits of card filling quality and usage.
Empowering mothers with knowledge about this vital health tool seems absolutely crucial for improving maternal and child health outcomes. That brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. We've covered a lot of ground, from weather forecasting, tech and space policy, to environmental issues, wildlife conservation, health trends, social issues, and even the science behind measuring a coastline.
Indeed. Each topic, from the BFS system's potential to the complexities of NCDs or the significance of the elephant census, offers valuable insights and connections for your mains preparation. Understanding the nuances, the challenges, and the way forward is key.
Absolutely. We hope this discussion helped clarify these important current affairs and concepts.
Remember, understanding the why and the how behind the news is just as important as knowing the what.
Subscribe for daily updates and drop a comment to share your thoughts. Please join the Telegram channel link given in the description to read this news and solve a quiz based on this. Jai Hind.